All right. Good morning, guys. Super excited that you guys have joined us today to talk about compounding your results going into 2021. We're really excited about this conversation. We've been having a lot of good feedback from the trainings that we've been doing these past couple weeks that we've been learning from the double digit recruiting call and our $1 million mentor, Bruce Cock. And so we're going to continue to pour out our minds to you guys in a lot of those areas. So obviously the year is winding down. And if you haven't already, you probably should have set your 2021 goals already. We usually start that early, but we're going to try to transition that mindset to you guys and some things that you should be focusing on and kind of looking at through that as well. So take a lot of notes. If you guys have questions, please post them in the chat. Don't wait till the end of the meeting because then sometimes we miss people's questions. So post them in the chat and we're going to go ahead and kick it off. So 2021 starts in December, guys. So a lot of times that people start planning in January. And when you start planning in January, a lot of times things don't start picking up until like 3 months later into March. And so right now, what we've been taught now for years and years and years is that you have to start planning the beginning of December. So it's like by the end of November, a lot of the leaders within our hierarchy have already started planning their goals for 2021. And if you haven't yet, that's fine, but you got to get on it. You should have it done definitely before the end of the year. It's not something that you want to start planning at the beginning of the year because a lot of times it does count for adjustments that you need to start making, and adjustments take time. So the cool thing first and foremost is everybody, you guys got to get on that double digit recruiting call. We were looking at the numbers on our last call on Tuesday and we went through numbers and Bruce said every single person that was on the call and stayed on the call. So not just get on the call and then get off the call because you didn't double digit recruit consistently, but got on the call and stayed on the call, they doubled their income in the past 12 months. There wasn't a single person that was on there that whatever they were making, they didn't double it. Everybody doubled their income or tripled in some cases. So with that, it's absolutely proven and extremely important and critical to your business to, number one, learn how to double digit recruit, but get on that call and stay on that call as consistently as you can. So with that, that's first. But guys, I just want to put it into perspective for you guys as a business owner. We are in business, and a lot of people, for whatever reason, we're very much a community. There's a lot of people here that come here because they like the environment. So this may not apply to that person, but if you did come here to become financially independent, to come here to have passive income, to make a difference in your life, change your family tree. Like last week, talk about being FI and having that macro big picture scale in your business and for your team and your teammates. You have to realize that you're in business, and in business, there are numbers. And when you think about any other business, they have expenses. And Bruce talked about something called the burn rate. He said that the burn rate is where there's not enough profit coming in to take care of the expenses that are going out. And I'm sure you guys know what happens when that's the case. I mean, especially right now during COVID, we've been seeing a lot of different companies, a lot of different industries, they're closing down. Why? There's not enough people, clientele coming in, profit coming in to handle the expenses of rent and paying their employees and buying the supplies for their business. When you guys think about it, they have to have an extreme focus on making adjustments very quickly and constantly, all the time, because the second they don't do that in time, things start to build up. And a lot of times people put in hundreds of thousands of dollars into their business just to get it started. So analyzing numbers and figuring out where you're at and what adjustments you need to make so that you can be not in the red, then it's critical. And so with Primerica, it's a great business. It's a business as well. It's a great business though, but it allows you to make adjustments and get better without having to worry about shutting your doors. You can always wipe the slate clean every week, every day, every month, every year. There's not very much of a risk factor about you no longer being in business with Primerica. that always comes down to you and the decision that you make. But it's never going to be like, oh, Primerica fired me, or I'm no longer here in Primerica because I'm not making any money, which I don't know. You got to think about that. But when you put it into perspective, guys, we don't have expenses that we have to worry about. But you do need to make sure that you're tracking where you're at and you understand your numbers so you can focus on growing those numbers and getting better over time. Because in the end, we are all in business. So I think Jen's going to continue on here.
Exactly. And exactly what Shondel just mentioned. In order to stay in business, you're going to have to keep track of all of these numbers that are your numbers. I'll never forget that. And, I'm glad that we're recording this because I hope Shay watches this training. I remember when somebody asked me what was Shaq's numbers. It's not just your numbers, guys, it's also your upline's numbers, but you want to align with your upline, okay? And that's growing your own numbers. So if you're going to stay in business, you have to consistently look at these numbers. So where are you at for the month? Where are you at for the week? What did you do today? But all these numbers that are going to be on your trend track, we'll talk about team track soon. They're going to show you what's called a trend, exactly what it says. So how do you find your trend track? You go on POL, and then when you click on My POL, the second tab to on the top of your page, on the drop down, there's only going to be two choices. You're going to click All Apps for Business. In that middle column, under Monitor My Team, you're going to see Trend Track, and then right under that, Team Track. So what's the difference? Trend Track lets you look at your specific numbers or a specific teammate's numbers under you. And you can look at it over any period of time, be it 90 days, 6 months, a year. And the cool thing about it is that you never really know how much you've grown until you can see what you've done compared to last year. So Bruce always said that when you look at your trend track, you look at last year's numbers compared to this year's numbers. This January versus last January versus this January. Last December versus this December. And you look at really how much you've grown over month after month after month over the last year. But your team track, because when you look at your trend track, you're going to look at, oh, maybe my personal premium grew, or maybe it didn't grow, but my team premium grew, or it didn't grow. Your team track is going to tell you exactly who over that same period of time in comparison contributed towards those numbers. And it doesn't have to be recruiting. It's going to show you the premium. It's going to show you the recruits as well. But how many people were helping you? How wide are you, right? Not just how deep, but how wide are you? And when you look at your trend track, the only reason why you have numbers, if you guys are looking at your numbers and you see, oh, you may have grown in some areas, but not, don't beat yourself up too much because you only have numbers because you did something. If you're not growing, you're dying though. So when you look at these numbers, that's step number one. Step number two is grow them. If you're not growing, you're dying. So Josh is gonna go over why to look at your trend track some more.
All right, so why you do anything is what you should begin with. We maybe should have began with this because you should always begin with your why. Trend track is, in our business, is how to become a true business owner in the B quadrant is what I mean. Everyone starts off with being in the S quadrant, self-employed. And so when you look at this from the B quadrant standpoint, you are the CEO of your own company here. When you filled out an IBA, you became the business owner, the CEO of your own company. Excuse me, guys, multitasking here. You became the CEO of your own company, you became a business owner day one, and you have to treat your business, your baby, like such. When you're the CEO of your own company, you are the one that ultimately takes charge of everything that goes on in that company. Jeff Bezos might have a lot of key leaders in his organization, in his company, but he's ultimately the one that pulls the trigger on, day-to-day operations or big time decisions, and puts the systems in place for people to be successful. When you're the CEO of your own company, you take responsibility over the growth or the death of your company. And you're the closest thing that to success that anyone under you sees. So you have to be a beacon of light for your team, in the sense that you're putting forth all the effort on a daily basis that contributes to creating a trend. So when you create a trend, you can go back, and for people that they may not have a trend, maybe because you're new or because you took 2020 off, that's okay. It doesn't take long to create a trend. It takes 30 days, really. And even if you want to break it down to 2 weeks, you can look at it that way. If you can create a track of 2 weeks worth of activity and results, your next step is to go out there and double what you did the previous 2 weeks. If you have a month's worth of, even in the whole 2020, you only have one good month, select that good month and try to double, or just beat it by $1 in premium, one recruit, to beat the trend that you've already created in 2020. If you've got 90 days, try to beat that segment of 90 days. But if you have a year, you're going forward to in 2020 to beat that year. And we'll talk about how you're going to create that momentum here moving forward. But you're the closest thing to success that anyone under you sees, even if you only have 2 weeks, a month, 90 days worth of activity to track in your trend track. So you have to set an example. Your trend helps you sell your business. What do I mean by that? Well, if you took your company public, okay, if Sergio was a company in his own right, which you have the opportunity to become as a regional vice president, if Sergio, the regional vice president, became a publicly traded company today, you would have to answer to a board room full of people that are responsible for the well-being of shareholders that buy stock in Sergio's company. Now, when you're explaining projections for the 2021 year to this room of the people on the board that are representing the shareholders, what are you going to tell them to excite them about the year to come in terms of your projections? Are you going to give them a dull, disillusioned projection based on what has occurred? Nope. Just like Jen said, you're not going to beat yourself up if you had a terrible year, or a subpar year, or just a year that you aren't exactly proud of. The first thing you're going to do is look at what you did right, and you're going to pinpoint all the things that you did right in the year 2020 and build off of that. Every single business has holes in it, including mine. So you're going to pinpoint what you did right, build off that, and fill the holes. And again, if you're selling your business to a room full of board members for the shareholders, when you build off of what you did right, you got to ask yourself, what if I doubled that the next year? And you know, if you take that approach, then shareholders are going to be excited about the future growth this year in your business, in Sergio's publicly traded company. When it comes to buying a stock, do you want to wait until mid-year on a hot stock, a stock that's going to grow, has projections to grow exponentially? No, you're going to want to buy into that stock early on. You know, Zoom went from like $40 a share to over $100+ a share in 1 year. Zoom. So you wouldn't want to wait until mid-year 2021 to get on, you know, to get on your game. You got to start right now. And that's how you sell your business, based on your trends. The last thing I want to hit on, why you must look at your trend track and monitor it, is because you become a better coach when you can do that. Everything, when you know, you in business, when we're sitting across the kitchen table from clients, we get them to buy emotionally, buy off emotion. And you have to get people to buy into your business, join you right now, going into the 2021 year, based on the emotions of your future growth, but then be able to justify it logically. And you can't justify anything logically without numbers. And where do you find the numbers? From the trend of what you've done so far and where you're going. Answer: in your trend track. You must print out your trend track, highlight what you did right, build off that, and help you figure out the adjustments that you need to make in order to create the momentum it takes to dominate in 2021.
Awesome, guys. So now I'm gonna kind of go over how to read your trend track, guys. So now this is gonna be a little bit more technical, but we want to write these things down, because yes, we've been talking about a lot of the philosophy of the trend track, but these are the numbers that you really want to focus in on and kind of go through. And so the sharper people in your business, they're gonna be the ones that pay attention to the numbers. So you want to make sure that you teach them which numbers that they need to be looking at. And so Josh kind of talked about this already, but you got to talk about, what did I do? You got to look at, what did you do right? A lot of people tend to just focus on what you did wrong. And then, like Jen said, don't beat yourself up. So we don't really want to do that. Focus on what you did right first, and then learn how to make adjustments. So when you're reading your numbers, I just thinking about it now, I probably should have showed you guys a picture of what the trend track looked like, but it's just a black, actually, I have one here. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this at all, but it literally just looks like a list of a bunch of numbers. And obviously you guys can kind of see that I have notes on it because we went over all of this with Bruce, but that's what your trend track looks like. It's literally black and white numbers, no stories, no explanations of what happened, but just straight numbers. So with that, when you read your numbers and there's percentages on there, percentages don't really matter that much. You want to look at the numbers. If you have a big year, like Josh said, you may have a lot of numbers, like big numbers, or maybe you didn't have numbers, you took the year off and you don't have a lot of numbers to compare it to. If you just had one recruit and you grew to 2 recruits, now you grew by 100%. I'm terrible with percentages, so that's why I don't really want to focus on it. If you did small numbers and you grew by a little bit, then your percentage is giant. But sometimes if you're doing bigger numbers, the percentages aren't really that massive. So that's really why you don't really want to focus on those. But these are the major things. You want to look at your personal numbers. So personal recruiting, personal premium, licensing, securities, personal securities production, and of course your cash flow, right? So personal recruiting, premium, personal licensing, securities, and cash flow. So when you start looking at these numbers, you want to start analyzing things. You want to start asking yourself, okay, if there was growth, why did that happen? So if you look at your personal premium, why did it go up? So for example, if you guys are going to start talking to your teammates about this, if premium went up, you want to ask them why. They need to know why it went up. It can't just be like, oh yeah, my premium went up. That's great. That's awesome. We grew. But why did that happen? So you can continue to do that. And obviously, well, not obviously, but you have to come to the conclusion that it's because you were doing more appointments. Now, if you were doing more appointments, where did that come from? Obviously, we had to set more appointments. And if we're setting more appointments, whether it's personal appointments or through field training, then that's going to cause that to go up. And so that's why I think it's even critical that everybody continue to focus on these appointment setting blitzes with their teams after training on Saturdays, because as the appointment setting rises, field training rises, your premium's going to go up. So that's critical. Then when you start looking at things like more specifically, like your cash flow, like I said, everybody that was on the call, their cash flow doubled, which is amazing. And so once you get to that point of actually making money, then you want to analyze where that money's coming from. So for example, I think we all kind of had to look at this because I didn't know where it was, and I've been here for a while. And so when you look at your income, you can actually break it down to where the cash is actually coming from. And so if you do have a securities license, number one, get one if you don't have one yet, but check your securities cash flow, what's coming from that. And so if you're looking at your trend track, you just hit cash flow as one of the options, because you can hit like licensing, overview, so on and so forth. But if you hit cash flow and then hit invest and save, it'll show you how much money you made. And so another major thing on the security side is you don't really, Bruce said, don't focus too much on the volume per transaction as much as how many new transactions did you do. So that was another new thing that we learned, is looking at how many initial accounts were open. And so why does that play a major role, guys? Because we can get like maybe 3, 4, or 5 transactions throughout the year, and maybe those transactions were huge, 300, 500, $1 million transactions, so on and so forth. Great. But he said it's a lot more important to look at how many new accounts that you open, because number one, if you have more accounts, then later on you may get more big transactions. For example, we call it packing people up. I mean, you got to sell the insurance, but if you get someone to start a $25 a month pack, $50 a month pack, a college saving plan, maybe one family that you meet with, they have 2, 3, 4 accounts that you open up, a non-qualified, a college, a Roth. So now you have multiple transactions. And when those transactions start to grow dramatically, then your securities assets under management is going to continue to grow. When people leave jobs, they're going to roll over their money into those accounts as well. So that's why the volume is not as important as the amount of transactions. So that's huge, guys. Now, once you're finished looking at your personal numbers, then you want to look at your base shop numbers. So when you look at base shop, 3 major things: your base shop recruiting, your base shop premium, and base shop licensing. Why are we looking at those things? He didn't really tell us to look at base shop securities as much, is because when you get your securities license, you want to produce with your securities license to make money. It's not really too big of an override business on the security side. You can make money from that. We did this week, which is great, but you want to focus on your personal security. So here, base shop recruiting, base shop premium, base shop licensing. Why is this critical? Was there anybody on your team that was helping you? If all of your base shop numbers is all of your same as all of your personal numbers, there's nobody helping you. But if there's a good mix, then now you know, hey, I have productive leaders, people that are growing and adding towards my business. So that's amazing. A lot of times when we were going through people's numbers and there was growth, the personal side sometimes maybe dropped a little bit or stayed the same, but their base shop numbers grew dramatically. Why? More independent, productive people on your team. Now, Josh mentioned this as well. If I did this exact same thing again, whatever the trend was, if I doubled my recruiting or doubled my personal premium or doubled my cash flow or licensing, that's something very important to us. If I doubled that next year, how much would I make, right? What will my business look like? And so those are the things that you want to think about and envision, because sometimes we're like, oh, I only did this. But think about it. If you did that exact same